Hey guys, it's Adam from Tested with another one-day build. I am going to be scratch building and kit bashing today. I know we've done little bits of this in the past on Tested, but as a model maker, my primary job was to take drawings from an art director like this and then fashion them out of what we had in the shop. We weren't using pre-existing kits, so we would take sheets of styrene and RenShape and other materials and make what the art director had drawn. And that is what I'm going to do today. I realized I had never shown you guys some of the techniques for working with styrene in this fashion. It's going to be a localized build. I'm not going to leave this table. I have pretty much everything I need right here for this build. So let's get started. This is my inspiration. This is my art director's drawing. I would get something like this when I was working on episode 1 and 2. I'd get something like this from Doug Chang. And I wouldn't get more angles, I wouldn't get layouts, I wouldn't get blueprints. I'd just get a single drawing, and I'd have to extrapolate from this drawing to build a three-dimensional object. So I'd spend maybe a day fleshing out the basic shape, and then I would kit bash and add details as the art director required. This drawing is actually, it's like my fantasy, right? To have Moebius be my art director. This is a picture from one of Moebius's graphic novels that I took a photo with my phone a few weeks ago, and it's perfect for our purposes today. It's boxy, it's fairly simple, but it will still allow us to go through most of the major techniques of working with styrene. Now, styrene is a plastic material. You can get it in any hobby store. It comes in different sheet thicknesses, 020, 040, 060, 080. I have a lot of different versions of it. I think I'm going to start with the basic body with 040 here. One of the things that's amazing about Moebius is he communicates so much with such simple lines. And when you look at this drawing really closely, more and more detail and implication of detail becomes apparent. And that's just really brilliant art direction. And it makes my job a lot easier. So we're going to start by fleshing out the basic form of this. One of the first things to figure out is your scale. My scale today will be Admiral Akbar, this 3.5-inch figure. So you can make all your "it's a trap" jokes to yourself, because that's the last time I'm saying that phrase. It is a little overspoken. But with Akbar as my guide, that's a good title for an autobiography. With Akbar as my guide. I can see the back of this is curved a little bit. Control panel here. It's a steeper angle. And that comes across. This is parallaxed, so it probably comes out to here. Oh, right. So with styrene, you don't need to use bandsaws and other cutting tools to cut styrene. A single X-Acto blade is plenty, because styrene does this really beautiful thing in that when you score it, and I'm not going all the way through when I'm making these cuts, I'm literally just going about halfway through. When you score it, you can pop it on that score. So you give it a little bend, and a little bend in the other way, a little bend in the other way, a little bend in the other way, and it pops off. Now I do end up with a little bit of imperfect flash there, but I'll deal with that later. However, I need 2 of these shapes because this is a box, so I'm now going to use this and trace it for my second shape. I can actually score right to it with my X-Acto blade, and I will be about as close as you could possibly get. The other thing about styrene is, as you end up with offcuts, you save them all because they can all be useful. So now I have 2 parts of my box. They are very close to each other. I'm going to use a sanding nail file just to make sure they're exactly like each other. This technique right here is pretty much how all the spaceships and all the movies you love were built, if they were physically built. You know, you'd make a wooden frame, but your main body would often be styrene because it's so, well, you'll see later why styrene is a perfect base material for this kind of construction. So So one of the things about this drawing is I can't see the top of what these two guys, the machine these two guys are sitting in, I can't see what the top of it looks like. But that's not a worry. It just means that I have to figure out what it looks like. And rather than, if I make it just a solid sheet, I kind of paint myself into a corner of having to detail it up. I'm actually going to make it a frame so that I can build some depth into it if I choose. If I decide not to, I can simply cover it with another piece of styrene. You'll see what I mean. All right, so let's do that. That comes out. I'm going to show you a cool technique you're going to really dig. I'm going to cut out this square, but I'm going to cut a square out of its middle. And I'm going to do it using only an X-Acto blade. Let's do that at 0.4 inches. So 2, 3, and 4. So I have a square scored out of here, but how do I pull that square out of here? Well, this way. I draw a star through the middle of it from corner to corner and corner to corner. So this is how to cut holes out of the center of a piece of styrene. So I start to manipulate this along these lines. Oh, yep, got a little bit of separation there. That's useful. Just gently keep, oh, there we go. See that? See what's happening? Yeah, that's how this goes. Oh, so awesome. Yep, till you hear that telltale crack, means you're living a righteous life. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, there we go. And I end up with a nice styrene frame. Okay. I want to save these because these can actually, well, you'll see how useful these can be later on. So we have our two sides and we have our top, right? Yeah. Okay. Now we need a bottom, and the bottom's going to be the same width as the sides. So it's simply going to be this long. Some of my old colleagues at ILM can build this way so fast it makes your head spin. I'm looking at you, John Goodson. Now that I have 4 pieces, I can start to assemble this thing. I'm going to use these guys as gussets for some mechanical advantage to this guy. Working with styrene, here's a tip. Get a tin can, preferably a diet soda tin can so it's not sticky. Cut the bottom of that can off. Now you've got your tin can bottom. This is a perfect styrene dispenser. And every model maker I know has one of these glued to a piece of card in their kit. Because what you do is you take this and you take some Weld-On number 3, which is the weld bond for styrene, and you pour a little bit into the top of your tin can. And then that is my styrene dispenser. And I'll show you how I'm going to use it. So I'm going to put a couple of gussets on this. I'm going to put 4 gussets on this frame, and I want to glue them. So I take a brush, I dip it in my weld bond glue, and I just brush it along the side there. And then do it both sides. It's a weld bond. This means that it actually melts both sides of the equation. So now I can leave that there. I do it again over here. I'm being a little bit rough about my internal construction. You can certainly get as anal as you like about this, but one of the things that's great about styrene is it hides a ton of crimes, as you say. There's lots of forgiveness within the process of working with styrene. So if you do something rough up front, you can hide it or mask it or sand it away or melt it later. Oh, look at that. Oh my God, it's like we're doing carpentry with plastic. It's exactly like we're doing carpentry with plastic. Once a seam is already set, you can go back in and just keep on putting a little glue to its side just to make it nice and solid. Now I'll do this one over here. Look at that. We're already on the way. We're on our way. Yeah, it's happening. Okay, so this is the bottom, and I went like that to that, so I'm going to... I know there are needle applicators for styrene glue, but I prefer the brush. The needle applicators can actually spread too much material, and I know that they're like highly precise, but still for me they really can be a little indiscriminate, let's say. Oh yeah, I mean, seriously, with just a couple sheets of 040 styrene and a bottle cap's worth of weld bond, and you can have an entire day of so much fun. One thing is, when you're using the weld bond, try not to get it between your finger and the styrene, because it's a really good way to permanently put your fingerprint in the styrene. Also, weld bond is a highly volatile solvent, and it doesn't smell awesome, unless you're me, in which case I think it smells awesome. Now, one of the other really cool things about styrene is it doesn't just come in sheet form. In fact, there's a company named Evergreen that makes styrene in a million different shapes and sizes. They make angle iron, they make round, they make oval, they make square. I'm going to use a bunch of Evergreen for detailing on this, and every good model shop has a large rack of this stuff at the modeler's disposal. Just like normal styrene, you can cut it with a knife. There it goes, really easily. And it glues with all the same techniques. Okay, I'm at a reasonable place where it's time to start cleaning up my edges. Now, if you look carefully at this, you'll see that I've glued a lot of these edges proud. They overlap a little bit. That was on purpose. That gives me some slop. I'm going to start sanding that slop out. All right, so I feel like Akbar seems really happy in this seat. I have to add more structure to the underside of this, but you can see how this has literally been 1 hour. That is 1 hour with a single 8.5 by 11 sheet of 040 styrene and a paintbrush full of weld bond and an X-Acto blade. That should give you some idea of the amount of potential there is in this material. It is one of my favorite ways to build things. And I submit that that was faster to build it this way than to design it in CAD and laser cut it. I said it. That's like a challenge. Now, I have my two parts. I'm going to join them together, but I have these two surfaces, these interiors here that are gonna be difficult for me to handle after I've glued them together. So I'm gonna actually run a little bit of detailing inside these two surfaces, here and here, before I glue this together. So the other thing that I wanna do is, and this is another great technique, I can cut a hole in the styrene construction just with the X-Acto blade using the same technique. I'm going to be a bit sloppy about this because this is a behind the scenes hole. No one will see it. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to be pretty about it. I'm not going to get fancy pants. And another way to cut out a hole is just to keep on cutting until you go right through the styrene. That also works just great. There we go. Okay, so detailing. I want to add some strip here. All right, I've done some detailing. I am now ready to attach these two puppies to each other. And let's just see, I'm just gonna get them into the right position, clamp it down with my hand, and then paint the edges with styrene glue. Boink, and boink, and boink. That's fabulous. I'm pretty psyched. I like how this is turning out. All right, so that's the main body of our ship. Akbar seems like he's very happy there. Don't you agree? I think so. So it's now time for me to start to add some, actually it's not time for detailing yet. I've got to place it on a stand. See, it's held up by this weird arm, and that's something I want to get right. So what I need is, I need this arm to come out of something. So it's probably like a slot here. I've now added a bunch of styrene and strip, and as you can see, I've hidden a lot of the crimes of this piece. That means I've made the corners look much better than they originally did when I glued them. But I still have these wide planes of unbroken space. And although Moebius's drawing includes that, I need to add some stuff to break up this panel, and that's why I'm going to go from 040 styrene to 020. The 040 means it's 40 thousandths of an inch thick, about 10 sheets of paper. The 020, 20 thousandths of an inch thick, about the thickness of a paper match. So I'm going to start cutting some panels out of 020 and laying them on here, and then it's going to really start taking shape. Okay, I'm going to show you one of my favorite little techniques with styrene. I want to add a little repeating detail. I'm going to add a little brrrt right here. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get rid of this blade, which I've been using the whole afternoon, and use a very fresh blade with a super sharp point. These are very small pieces of 020 styrene, and I can pick it up with barely any effort with the tip of this super sharp blade. So I pick it up with that tip, I give it a tiny dip in styrene, I place it where I want, and bang, it's glued. I do it again. Do this one, dip, glue. And I still have, you have a little time after you drop it to place it. So then I can do another, let's try another one over here. You can put these anywhere you want. Doink. Maybe it goes right there. You see how it's all of a sudden starting to add real detail? Now I've got this sort of spaceshipy panel. I'm going to actually add some little more surface detail to it by giving it that. And you really do have time to kind of use the X-Acto blade to place it. This is what's so great about styrene. Just the amount of precision detail you can add without a tremendous amount of effort is really awesome. I'm really happy with how this is shaping up. I have this big expanse here. There's no part of the drawing that shows me what happens in that expanse. I'm going to cut a panel out, like a spaceship panel, and I'm going to walk you through some of my thinking about that panel. So first I'm going to sketch it out to the rough size, which is going to be probably, oh yeah, let's do it like that. About like that. Okay, so I don't have to be that exact. Now I've got this panel, and it's going to go here, and it's going to break up that space. But I'm not just going to do that. I actually want to take a couple of notches out of it. So I'm going to pull a notch out of the bottom first. To do that, I'm just going to give myself a little reference line. And again, I'm not going to try and worry too much about being super bilaterally symmetrical, because few things in the world are. But I am going to cut it on a diagonal. That's a very Star Wars maneuver, to cut a notch out with diagonal sides. That right there, doesn't it? It starts to feel right away like you're in a dystopian fantasy. Okay, so there we go. Oh, yep. All of a sudden, I'm starting to see something that feels kind of right. Now, I might just leave it like that. But you know what? I'm also going to cut out just the corner, because I'm not sure that I wanted to have 4 perfectly square sides. There we go. Oh, actually, that's really nice. I'm going to do the same on the other side. There we go. And I'm just doing this by eye. It's really not necessary to be super exacting about it, because my eye isn't looking at this and going, oh, that part is wider than that part. That's not what you do. This is a story about a thing. We don't know what this is. We don't know what it's for. It's from some other universe. But that feels kind of right. Yep, I'm gonna add some more of my little styrene. I'm gonna add some more of my little styrene gooblies. Greeblies. Greeblies is the name that George Lucas gave to these types of details. So one of the things I'm using as my guide in this kind of detailing is just what feels right to my eye, but also I've screwed up enough builds like this to know not to spend too much time on a single side of my construction. So I do a little bit here and a little bit there. I want to tell a story about this being a device, but I don't want to get too caught up in really particular stuff. I don't want to get too symmetrical, so I'll do off-sided stuff like this, lopsided, great over here, but not over here. All that kind of stuff is really important because life is not bilaterally symmetrical. It's a really good idea to just keep on moving around the construction and changing things up here and there and really seeing where it takes your eye. All right, so I'm going to put a little thing there. Yeah, that feels right. I'll put another one right next to it. Boy, do I feel like Bob Ross right now. You can put that anywhere you want because it's your spaceship. You can dictate where it goes. You can go anywhere you want. I want to go to a planet full of jello flowers. It's totally up to you. Oh, I lost it. How many times have you leveled something like that?
Actually, quite a few, yeah.
So cool. All right. I now have the basic structure of the ship completed. We're about 6 hours into this build. I've got it up on a soldered brass arm on a nice heavy steel base so it can't move anywhere. Now it's time to do some of the real detailing, and that's where kit bashing comes in. I've actually got a couple of kits I want to play with here. I have a beautiful Eagle transporter. I know this is like a classic, but pieces from this model are all over the alien spacesuit, and so it holds a special place in my heart, and I think I might do some detailing inside this open chamber from this kit. Yeah. I also have a second kit, which is another classic. There are parts of this. This is the Anzio Annie Minicraft Hasegawa. There are parts of this kit in every spaceship you have ever seen in the Star Wars universe. I am not kidding. This is on the Millennium Falcon. It's on the Slave 1. Anzio Annie here is a very, very fertile kit to kit bash from. I don't think I've covered this on Tested before, but I said there are parts of this kit on every Star Wars model, and it's true. There is a part that is an amazing part, and it's right here. This little pip. It's an amazing part because it's got a dome, and that means it kicks light. And light kicking off your model is a great way to draw your eye to certain details. And because it's small, this works in kind of almost any scale. You could glue it to the side of a prop pistol, or I used a whole bunch of these on the Hero large Tupoka City building in episode 2. We used it all over Space Cowboys. In fact, we built a miniature on Space Cowboys that they built a full-size version of the set we built in miniature, and they made large versions of this. At ILM, it's called the UG, the Universal Greebly, because it's never not the right choice to make. And I am going to put probably 3 of these right here on the dashboard of my ship. Oh, that's what I put under there. Yeah. Okay, and I could use one more little doohickey. Oh, yeah, there we go. This little greebly right here, that's totally on the Millennium Falcon. All right, I could keep on doing greebling all day, and seriously, I would very much enjoy that. But I think that we have successfully shown how versatile styrene is as a modeling material of kind of surpassing excellence. This is about 7 hours. That's a one-day build that took place in a day. And to show you what the finished project looks like, I am going to hit it with some gray spray paint primer, which is always where everything comes together. All right. This is my favorite part, honestly, is the primer ties everything together. And that right there is a suitable vehicle for the Admiral. And that is a one-day build of how styrene is the soul of spaceship modeling. Nope, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.